What are your first thoughts about Tinubu's position to stop gas flaring in Nigeria in order to, prevent the burning of methane gas? What do you have to say about that position of the president?
Well, if anybody can do it, he certainly can, because we've heard similar statements for quite some time, and it just hasn't been done. And of course, the burning of this gas, it has so many negatives. The main negative impact is on the population in that area, because the gas goes up into the air when it's burnt and it gives off toxic chemicals, which do so much harm. When it falls as rain, it falls as acid rain. You can't grow anything in the land there because the land has been poisoned by this acid rain. It causes chemical poisoning for young people especially. Rates of cancer will increase. The flaring is very noisy. Sometimes you hardly know whether it's day or night because these flares are just burning brightly. So it's a terrible thing to have continued for years and years and years. And the leaders knew about it. They even said, okay, we're going to make sure that this stops. But the companies that are doing it is for them at that time, it was cheaper just to pay the small penalty. So yeah, President Tinubu has all it takes. It can be very, very assertive, it can be very aggressive, but it can also be, politically diplomatic. He knows his way around. So he can do it. And our hope and our prayer is that he will ensure that it's done, that he won't just make a statement and the statement is just floating in the air. He'll make sure that that statement is actualized. So yes, it needs to be done, amongst many other things that need to be done to protect ourselves from the implications of what we're doing with this particular substance called fossil fuel.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Desmond. Now, do you think gas flaring can be stopped in the real sense, like completely eradicated? I mean, for a nation like Nigeria, where, of course, crude oil is one of our major exporting commodity for revenue, how do you completely eradicate gas flaring?
Well, just by letting people know about the implications of it, as I alluded to a little earlier. It's a very toxic substance, and you're burning this gas, which could be used as what they call a transition fuel, because we now know that the days of burning petrol and diesel, those days are numbered, and in fact they should be numbered quite short. We shouldn't really be burning it much longer, because the implications of burning these substances are very, very dire indeed. I'm not just talking about the gas flaring, no. I'm talking about burning the other substances that come from fossil fuel. Gas is just one of the products of the fossil. The other one is when you refine it, you get diesel and you get your petrol. And we now know that it is causing very, very bad damage to the atmosphere. And the whole world is appreciating that we have to stop burning this fossil fuel, including, of course, in Nigeria, particularly because there's a lot of gas, burning the gas. Can it be done? Yeah, all we need to do is just have the will and let the people who are profiting from it understand the implications on them as well. Life is a very, very interesting and complex thing. And there are certain laws that govern life. Yes. And these laws operate in the physical and in the metaphysical. That is, they operate in the real, hard, and tangible, and then also in the spiritual. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the laws of action begetting reaction. If I pick up my phone, as you can see here, and I release my fingers, this phone is not going to hang in the air. It's going to drop. I won't do that because I don't want to damage my phone. But why is the phone dropping? Because the phone, the phone is obliged as a physical entity with mass to obey the law of action begetting reaction. And in this particular case, it is the action of the gravitational field that is exerted on any mass because of the rotation of the mass of the earth. You know, action and reaction. And in scripture is very clear there as well. God is not mocked. Whatsoever you sow, you shall surely reap. Okay? And if you're sowing this thing of burning this toxic substance into the atmosphere of this area, and it's killing children, and it's despoiling the land, and it's causing hardship and problem for so many people, and you are responsible for allowing this to happen, it comes back at you. It's there in scripture. This is not me talking. I'm just quoting science and quoting scripture. Very, very clear. Whatsoever you sow, you reap, you get it back. So the leaders who have a responsibility of ensuring that this stops, they, for their sake as well, they should do it, you know, and they should have a little bit more empathy. Where's your empathy? What, you know, the people that are living in these places, they're human beings, you know, and even if they were animals, do they deserve to be treated like that? Do they deserve that their habitat should just be destroyed in that way? It must be stopped.
All right, let's stay here. Now, CO2 is emitted not only through the burning of fossil fuel. You know, it is also let off by burning wastes, trees, and other materials. Now, and during flaring, during gas flaring, there are also, you know, gases that are useful, such as the natural gas, like methane gas, is useful, you know, in of course, in cooking and other activities. Now, how can the government, you know, see to it that, you know, gas flaring is carried out in such a way that the useful gases can be, you know, can be gotten and not, you know, disposed of in the air and being let off in addition to CO2, which is detrimental to the environment. What do you have to say about that, Mr. Desmond?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the methane gas, it does have good usage. You know, as you said, for cooking and so on. It's just, you know, the challenge they've always had with this methane gas is the profitability factor, because trapping it and confining it and transporting it is actually, it can be quite expensive. So using a lot of the methane, depending where it's coming from, is not always profitable enough for as far as the producers are concerned to justify it. So quite often we just looked on the gas that came from our oil fields as a byproduct and an unprofitable byproduct. So that's why it's better just to flare it, to burn it off, and then pay the fine for burning it off, because it's not profitable to us. Well, which that's at least burning it is better than releasing it, because you know we were talking about the effect of CO2 as a greenhouse gas. Well, methane is 3 to 400 times more pollutant, more virile as a greenhouse gas than CO2, even though it has a limited lifespan in the atmosphere. So methane released into the atmosphere can cause a lot of damage. And you know, if you're going to now be trapping it and transporting it and bottling it, you have to be very careful. You have to be very, very conscious of what you're doing. But if it's done well, and I think the technology for doing it is becoming more readily available and cheaper, it can be quite profitable indeed. And as I alluded to earlier, it's now been looked on as a transition fuel, because definitely the world is going to insist that very soon no more burning of diesel, no more burning of petrol in the next 10, 20 years max. Although, and this is the challenge, a lot of the scientists are saying we don't even have that long We don't have that long to cut out the burning of these toxic substances. And they are toxic. Okay, I'm going to put a question to you now. If I bring a small generator, just a small generator, into your studio right there, which is an enclosed room, will you allow me to turn on that generator? And if I do turn it on, will you stay in the studio? Will you stay in the room?
Not, Mr. Desmond, definitely not. This takes me to my next question. Nigeria is set to start the export of natural gas, such as methane, to Germany, to further improve the economic challenges we are going through to boost our revenue. How would this be possible if we stop the flaring of gas?
Yeah, well, what we do is we stop burning it, and we trap it, and then we transport it through pipelines. Those pipelines will be running through some of our neighboring countries. So we have to be sure that we have a good relationship with those neighbors, because transporting it in tankers is another way, but it's not as profitable. And it's interesting that countries like Germany are expressing an interest for purchasing our natural gas. And by the way, amongst all the other blessings that this country called Nigeria has, gas is one of them. We're one of the most gas-rich nations in the world. We have tremendous amounts of gas. But as I said, it was more profitable to just extract the oil and refine it into the products that we refine. So a lot of the companies were burning it. But what is interesting is that they had said they would phase out the burning, and they never did. And this is the challenge that is facing us, not just in Nigeria, but humanity as a whole, because we have been prioritizing the profit ahead of the welfare of the people and the safety of the planet, the ability of the planet to support life effectively. We've been prioritizing the profit. And whilst definitely, profit is is very good, money answers all things. But if we are too addicted to that profit at the expense of people's livelihood, then something is fundamentally wrong. As you said, and you didn't answer the question in totality, you didn't allow me to ask you why you wouldn't stay in the studio. But everybody knows, at least most people know, that you wouldn't stay in a confined space with a generator running, because it gives off the toxic fumes, which would actually kill you. And we've heard these tragic cases of people caught up in that kind of scenario. So the reality is that we are making tremendous profit from something that is actually quite deadly. You know that over 5 million people every year die as a result of the air pollution that comes from burning these substances, including the gas that we're burning. But it's so profitable that we haven't been able to persuade ourselves to stop this poisoning of the atmosphere that is eliminating people. But what makes it even far more serious is that not only are people dying in very large numbers because of these different diseases, all kinds of bronchial kind of diseases, cancerous diseases, and so on. But not only are people dying from this, it is also affecting the very composition of the Earth's atmosphere. And this Earth that we're living in is an extremely special, unique place. You know that in our galaxy alone, there are billions, billions, and billions. In fact, some people say trillions of planets. Okay, there are 100 billion stars, and all those stars have planets around them, just like our own Earth. The sun has planets revolving around it. Okay, so our galaxy alone has billions. And because of the technology we have now, we've been able to identify many of the planets, millions, hundreds and hundreds of billions of planets, we've been able to identify many of them. And so far, not a single one out of those planets has the various qualities that our Earth has that can support life the way this Earth supports life. And one of the major reasons why the planet Earth can support life is because of the composition of its atmosphere. That atmosphere that comprises of many gases. You know that when you look up in the sky, the reason why the sky is blue and not black, because if you go beyond our atmosphere, the sky is black. The reason why it's blue is because of one particular gas, H2O, that's water vapor in a very fine form. When the sunlight goes through H2O, it gets diffracted and it brings out the blue aspect of the light. As you know, sunlight has different radiations. It has red, blue, indigo, violet, green, all these, and different gases bring out those colors. H2O brings it out. Okay, but that's just one of the many gases. There's the CO2 that you mentioned earlier. There's nitrogen oxide. There's helium. There's different types of gases that are doing different things. One of them, or several of them, are called the greenhouse gases, and that's the carbon dioxide, particularly.
I don't know if you can hear me.
They trap. Yeah, I can hear you. They trap the
Okay,
heat of the sun.
I don't want us to, deviate completely from the topic. The topic is on gas flaring and, of course, fossil fuel. Now, do you think it is the reason why this practice of gas flaring is very rampant is due to the fact that it is cheaper to do? Would it cost more to actually go through some other mediums, to extract crude oil, rather than gas? Gas flaring. So do you think that is one of the reasons why this practice is rampant, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's, prioritizing the money, and, that's the way a lot of people's heads are tuned, that we've got to make the money no matter what. The money is the ideal thing, even if making that money destroys the very life support systems that people are relying on, the miraculous, wonderful atmosphere of this planet that makes sure that the planet is at a certain heat, that this planet is able to support life. And what we're doing is wrecking that system and killing many people. The armed robber, why does he go and shoot somebody to take the money? Because he prioritizes making money over that person's life. And this is the harsh reality that we have to accept. How can we continue making money out of a substance that is killing people? But not only is it killing, remember the figures that I gave you. Over 5 million people die every year burning this stuff. And not only that, it's affecting the atmosphere, the wonderful, miraculous atmosphere that makes this Earth livable out of millions of other planets. You can't go and live on Mars, Jupiter, and all the other planets that you're aware of, and there's millions of others. Because it's profitable. You see, there has to be a change. And definitely the stopping of the gas flaring is one of them. Whether it's going to be profitable or not, it must stop. So yeah, definitely there's technologies that can help us to maybe do it without loss, and even to help us to do it profitably. But it has to be done. It's not a matter of, well, let's see, it's going to affect the profit margin. Forget it. Forget it. As I said, the armed robber. How can you justify killing somebody to take their money? Let alone, how can you justify thousands of people in those areas, having sickness and sadness and all kinds of food issues and so on, because it's more profitable to be flaring the gas? How do you possibly justify this? You cannot. If you can, then the armed robber can justify his own too.
All right, Mr. Desmond, who do we hold responsible for gas flaring? Do we hold the companies or government itself?
We hold ourselves. We hold ourselves because we haven't been able to, activate the democratic process effectively enough over the people who are making decisions for us in government. And maybe they need to understand the job description, which is civil service. Civil service. So you're a servant to the people. Whether we call you excellency or honorable or whatever. You're a servant to the people. It's the people's funds that are paying everything that's keeping you going. So yeah, we the people have to, stand and be very, very, very firm and say, no, this is what we want. You must stop this gas flaring. It is destroying our environment. And how can you be pretending to be representing us, to be serving us, if you're allowing something that is destroying our environment, which is our life support system? Our life support system, you destroy someone's life support system, then their life can no longer be supported. It's so fundamental, it's basic. And if you talk to some of the people from those areas where this gas is being flared, it's tragic. They bury their children every weekend because children are the most vulnerable. So how do you justify doing something that is killing off children with giving them all sorts of carcinogenic problems, especially in their bone marrow and so on, where they're getting cancerous diseases? Yeah, yeah. So we have to demand, and then the government have to insist that no matter what, stop, finish, we're in control. Companies, this is your instruction. We're giving you 6 months. We're giving you whatever. You must stop this thing. Finish. It's over. And if you don't stop, we shut you down. We shut you down. Action begets reaction, and that's why we need to keep on alluding to this. We seem to have, lost this reality that what you sow is what you reap. If you're going to sow this negativity into people's lives, if you're going to be responsible for people having to bury their children in an area where before you used to be able to go fishing, I was talking to somebody from that area. He'd go to school, he'd go to on his riverine area, go on the boat on the way back. He'd catch fish as he's going. He'd walk on the land. He'd pick up some cassava. By the time he got home, he's got food for the whole family. Now there's no more fish. Now the cassava can no longer grow there, and half of his brothers and sisters are sick or dying as a result of this. So it has to be done, but we have to insist that it's done. And know that this system that we're operating, this democratic system of the people, for the people, by the people.
How would you say Nigeria can effectively transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources?
Well, it's something that should have been prepared for many, many years ago. Partly because no matter what, even if we don't stop its use tomorrow, which obviously is not very practicable, definitely in another 10, 20 years, we're going to stop anyway because it's not a renewable resource. It's a very limited resource. It'll run out. The oil will definitely run out sooner than the gas because the gas is in large quantities. But it's not a renewable resource. And unfortunately, governments in the past didn't invest the profits, the great amounts of money that we accrued from selling this resource. Remember, we've been selling our oil and to little extent our gas for a long time. But sadly, the profits were not invested in the right way, like Norway, for instance. Norway is a gas producer, and they have a massive sovereign wealth investment fund all over the world. They've been investing and investing and investing. They own all kinds of very viable businesses in many parts of the world, properties, so on and so forth. So yeah, we unfortunately used the funds extremely irresponsibly, for want of a better description. And so we're now in a bit of a quagmire, and also the reality that there's a huge debt. So even funds that could accrue, a lot of it will just be going off to paying off the debt. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. But luckily for Nigeria, which, to be frank, is one of the most blessed countries that you could ever hope to live in. Potentially has tremendous greatness. Just looking at the minerals alone, apart from the oil and gas, which we are going to have to stop, and it should be far sooner than later. But apart from that, there's so many other minerals that the modern world needs. Lithium now. Every good battery requires lithium. We've got large amounts of lithium in so many parts of the country, bauxite, so many minerals. And we have tremendous agricultural potential. So it's not too late to go into fast-track development of an investment in those other areas, in the other mining areas. But if we're going to do the other mining, it has to be done far more responsibly than we've been doing the oil and gas mining, far, far more responsibly. Otherwise, you can't justify it. How can you justify doing a mining activity that is going to destroy the lives and livelihood of thousands of people? It's just, you know, unjustifiable. And if you
Okay,
take
now, so many countries present at the COP28 summit clamored for the transition from fossil fuel energy source to renewable energy. Now, wouldn't this further cause Nigeria to be dependent on the Western world for power, basically?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, we have far more potential in our natural resources than just about any other country does. If we're talking about the sunlight alone, the amount of sunshine that Nigeria has, even during the rainy season in a lot of our areas, is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And that's just the sunlight. There's also the sun heat. Both of those, the light and the heat, can be and are being used to produce electric power. So what are we talking about? Not to mention the wind. All along our coast, we have wind. We can have windmills. It's one of the cheapest, most efficient ways of producing electricity. Our highlands, we have wind, a lot of wind power. We have a lot of wave power. The waves on our coast are continuous, continuous, continuous. We have about 10,000 times more potential from our natural resources than we do from the fossil fuel industry. It's just that it's profitable, it's easy to do, and we're locked into that. But we've got to break away from that. Again and again and again, we have to ask ourselves, how can we justify doing that? And it's going to be stopped anyway. The demand for our oil and gas, even the gas, is going to be very short-lived. The gas is just a transition fuel. And the people in those countries which are operating effective democracies are beginning to demand of their governments to stop it, stop it, stop it. You know, forget it. Don't be part of the process. You see, what we don't realize, and what we really need to get into our consciousness, is that we're approaching tipping points with the environment. When the Secretary General of the United Nations tells you that mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal, because nature always fights back, and that we have to stop this war against nature, we should listen. We shouldn't just think, oh, well, he's just talking, he wants to spoil my business. No, he's telling you the truth. He's telling you that your children's livelihood, and definitely your grandchildren's livelihood, is in great jeopardy. 2023 is the hottest year ever recorded by humanity. And in the last 10 years, we had 3 of the hottest years. So, yeah, no, we won't have to. In fact, it's the Western world that's going to be dependent on Nigeria. And once we get it right, and you know, President Tinubu can't get it right, once we get it right, there's going to be re-Japan. People will be coming back. Those who jabbed over there, they'll come back, and they'll come back with some knowledge and some information, and also, you know, some enlightenment to a country that is rich with resources. Rich with resources. Nigeria is potentially one of the greatest countries in the world. We have it all under the ground, and we have it between our ears. We've got some highly intellectualized people. But we've got to break away from this system that has been developed over the last few decades, where, you know, education, and people are deprived of education, and it's used as a tool to weaponize poverty. No, we don't need to go that way. We need to be our brother's keeper. And definitely we won't be relying on the Western nations unless we allow our leaders to sell us out to the Western nations. And I don't believe we will. I believe we've got in a situation now where the current leadership has got he's got a knowledge of what needs to be done, but we need to see that being practicalized. A lot of talk, but we need to see the practical aspect of the talk. So as far as us being dependent on the West for energy, no, not at all. They will be dependent on us for the energy because we got it all.